Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another ranking video. Today we're going to be ranking every faction in Galaxy of Heroes. This is a video I did over 2 years ago. It's been a long time since I did it, and I did more ranking videos when I started my channel, but I still wanted to update this one because it has been a long time. We have not only new factions, tons of new characters within the old factions, and the balance of power has shifted significantly with conquest units, legendaries, and all that stuff. For each rank, let's just show the worst one first. So I'm gonna be going worst to best. The worst faction in the game, in my opinion, is Jawas. All these icons, or most of them, are gonna be taken from Datacron assets on SWGOH, but some of those didn't. Some of the factions have not had their own Datacron yet. So for those, I just used some other pictures that I think make a lot of sense. And if they're not completely clear, I'm gonna label them. Also, after I show a character or a faction's rank, I'm going to be going over into the game to look at Aesop Rock's account because he's the top Grand Arena play in the world. He has basically everything. These are not my Jawas. I don't have Relicate Jawas, but Jawas are the worst. I mean, other than the Galactic Challenge, the odd Galactic Challenge you're forced to use them in, they don't really have much value. In PvP, yes, they might be annoying sometimes, and throw out a ton of thermals, but you don't really have any big use for them. They don't get you anywhere in PvE. There's no real reason a free player would want to go for them unless they have everything else. So they're the absolute worst faction in the game. And the second worst faction in the game is Ewoks. So Ewoks have definitely improved since the last time I did a ranking, especially with Princess Nissa. They do have some utility. I'm not saying they don't. It's just I don't see the huge value in them. Nissa doesn't have a Grand Arena Omicron. She has a TW Omicron. Even the Chief Sherpa one, they don't really have much play unless you sync god mods and have a specific mod lineup for turn order. I just don't see a huge value in them. They're not horrible. It's just like the way, there's no truly terrible faction right now except Jawas, but Ewoks still bottom of the barrel for me. I know a lot of people might argue, but I mean, if you look at all the other factions, you might not. So D tier, bottom of D tier, we have Geonosians, and Geonosians are a team that when they came out, they were pretty good. I mean, they took people by storm. Right now, the best thing they have going for them is the Poggle Omicron and TW. On Grand Arena at the high end, they're not really useful at all, except Geonosian Brood Alpha is kind of a disposable tank. Other than that, I would say Geonosians don't really have much going for them in PvP either. We had a feat forcing us to use Geonosians last conquest cycle, and it was miserable because they just do not have any real options. Next up in the D tier, we have Old Republic, and I'm a huge fan of Old Republic. Old Republic has one of my favorite characters, Jedi Knight Revan. Again, this is Aesop's account. But you don't have a full cohesive good Old Republic team. I mean, you have Jedi Revan, has some other Jedi he can lead, but you don't have 5 Old Republic Jedi. They need outside help as well. The Karth team is terrible. And the only thing that brings them up is Sorry, Revan, and Jolie, really. I mean, Zalbar's okay in the right context, but Canderous helps with Mandalorians, but that's mainly a feature for the Mandalorian faction. But Old Republic, they are brought up by Sorty and Revan, and that brings them above, Ewoks, Jawas, Geos. But the fact that I put Revan's faction down here should say I'm not trying to be favoritist in this. It's just what I think their actual value is, and Old Republic just does not have a ton of value. Next up in D tier, we have Wookiees, and I went back and forth on where to place Wookiees and Old Republic respectively. At first, I thought maybe I'd have Old Republic before them. But the Wookiee faction, I mean, they have one cohesive team under Tarful, but they do have a lot of good, valuable pieces that are spread out. I mean, Chewbacca's great, Corsandra's fantastic on the Jabba team, 3PO and Chewie's great. We see 3PO, even Banner Chewbacca is pretty useful with the dash. So they just have some overall strong pieces, and they do have one coherent team. They have a forced mission in TB if you have them all Relic 7. So they did merit getting a little bit higher in the D tier, just above Old Republic. And topping out the D tier, we have Tuskens. So Tuskens, they're not completely useless. They actually are pretty good if you take them against the right teams, turn meter oriented teams. In the 3v3 Grand Arena, they are a bona fide threat. However, that is just 3v3 Grand Arena. If it was 5v5, they might squeak out into the C tier. but right now D tier seems like a good place for them. Warrior has an Omicron that makes Boba Fett, Scion of Django, an honorary Tusken, but I'm not showing him here, not considering him. You know, it's one team. It's a solid team. It used to be good for a raid. Now we don't get to use that raid anymore, so it seems fitting to have them in D tier, and that finishes that tier for us. And now that we're in the C tier, we're going to start seeing some more solid factions that have widespread viability, but might not be super deep. So Bad Batch is a very restricted category. There's one team. It will be expanding in the future. I mean, Omega does have a TB Omicron if you do choose to apply it. But Echo and Tech really just on their own are pretty fantastic. They really changed the game. You can slot them in with a Queen Amidala team and that makes a difference. But Bad Batch on their own, they're solid. They can take out a lot of teams on offense, but you know, they're not like world beaters or anything. So bottom of C tier is actually not bad. This is where we start to see solid teams that aren't quite demolishing. Such as the Phoenix. Now, newer players that just watched my free-to-play farming guide and are just starting out, and they're actually new players, they're not like existing or like returning players that made a new account, might be disappointed to see this, but Phoenix, trust me, is still so solid. It is such a good beginner team, and it is a fantastic team in the right circumstances. They can beat a Reva team. You know, they can beat Lord Vader if they have Datacron help occasionally. It's been a while. But they are really just one team. They are really focused on just Captain Rex, and Captain Rex can be used in a variety of different places. Without him, they kind of fall apart. However, I still think they merit being in the C tier. They're also flexible with tags. I mean, Phoenix and Rebel is good on their own, and then Captain Rex has Rebel Fighter. But you know, since this is a faction ranking, I'm not really putting too much stock in that. But yeah, they're just a good team. I mean, Hera, Omicron makes them better in TW. Rex makes them better in GAC, his Omicron. So yeah, not too much to say. I mean, for PvE-wise, it's starting out the game. Yeah, this is your best team you're ever going to get and ease of farming. But for the overall faction ranking in the game, how good they are, they're lower C tier for me. Moving on, we got Rogue One. So I didn't know if this icon was super familiar to everyone, but Rogue One is a solid faction. I mean, they are effectively one full team, but then they have some solid characters outside of that, like Baze and Chirrut go well together on either Saw team or pretty much just a Saw team. So I mean, they're just solid. I mean, Amaratus and Jin fit in very well with Leia, which makes one of the better Leia comps you can have. So it kind of edges them up for me. Their punch up viability is very strong, especially against Empire. And, you know, like that Imperial Remnant Archer Moff Gideon team. So they do have a lot of in-game viability, which does squeak them out ahead of Phoenix for me. Not quite. They have a Datacron right now at the present as recording this video that makes them crazy good, but that's not affecting my decisions. Datacrons in general aren't affecting how I'm ranking them here. But Rogue One was pretty solid, just above Phoenix. And next we have a slightly bigger faction. This is Clones. This is the icon they use for their Datacron. I'm not sure what it actually is. But we have effectively two teams here. We have the Bad Batch and the 501st without their leader, General Skywalker. And we also have Captain Rex. So Captain Rex also helps boost up the faction a good bit. So naturally, they're going to be higher than Bad Batch. But notice we haven't seen 501st yet, because, you know, that gas has a lot to do with that ranking of that faction. But Clones are just solid. I mean, they have everything Bad Batch does. Rex we already talked about, and then just 501st, so they're kind of just a little bit higher. They're deeper than Phoenix, which also has Rex, so they are just a little bit above there. Next, we have Separatists. So Separatists are not, you know, crazy. They used to be, I used to consider them a lot better, but we already have Geos covered. What helps them get up a little bit above these other factions we've seen is really Wat Tambor, Django, and Admiral Trench. Surprise, like, he is really good in TW. So a lot of people give Trench a bunch of crap, but the Grievous team is still okay. TB, they're a lot better, or TW. So this is more of a TW faction at this point. They do have Grievous, they do have a fleet. They subsume the Geo faction, so all that kind of builds up to put them a little bit higher. But still, they are not, you know, blowing me away anymore. Next, we got a faction that used to rank a lot higher in my book and be considered a lot better in general. Imperial Troopers. The problem with Imperial Troopers compared to the last time I ranked them, they have not really grown at all. We haven't had a new Imperial Trooper except Scout in forever. I mean, Scout does help. But all the Imperial Trooper type characters we're getting now are going straight to Imperial Remnant, and they are more top heavy. So Iden, good beginner team. Imperial Troopers on the years with Piet and Dark, also good beginner team, intermediate team. But they are also teams I just don't really get use out of as much anymore in Grand Arena, except for Iden, sometimes in 3v3 beating out a CLS team. So they really just haven't grown. So that gets them. They're still pretty high. They're still in the C tier. I mean, I rank them above Clones and Separatists, which you could argue against. But yeah, they are not B tier like I think I used to have them ranked. Coming up next, we got droids, and here is the current droid faction. What we have, including Huyang, the brand new character. So I mean, this includes Grievous and the Separatist droids, so that gives them a little bit of edge over their Separatist brethren of a faction. But big standouts here: BT1, huge deal. C3PO and R2, nice utility players. Sortie we already covered. I mean that sortie team, including T3M4, BB-8, Lobot isn't like shown here, but his kit kind of makes him a droid. It all kind of adds up to give just a solid edge. 3PO and Chewie, like characters that are good on other teams. Dark Trooper for Imperial Troopers. Really just a rounded team, just all kind of solid. But there's a lot of crap in here, like IG-86. Yeah, that's the bottom of the barrel there. And Imperial Probe Droid, not really good anymore. But pretty solid team near the top of C tier. And to top out the C tier, we have Rebel Fighters. So this icon is like the lead of Saw, and it's only ever been used for them, so I didn't think I needed to label it. But Saw's the real standout here. So a few now. Saw, Captain Rex, Drogon, Luthen in here really kind of tip them over the scales to put them ahead of droids. They have one functional, like, full Rebel Fighter team, and that's under Saw. But just a lot of solid pieces that go all over the place. Drogon is a big feature on the Leia team. Rex is, he's so versatile, extremely valuable. Luthen really supercharges this team, or the Mon Mothma team. Cal Katarn, very solid. And a lot of these are also on the Rogue One faction. So it just kind of subsumed a lot of other factions, which puts it at the top of the C tier for me. Moving on to B tier, this is kind of the top tier that we're going to have for single team factions, like 501st. So 501st has not changed in forever. They have the 501st clones with gas, and then also Ahsoka Tano. So Ahsoka Tano kind of gives them a little bit of a bump, but it's a very concentrated, strong faction. Like, this one team is gonna mostly handle all these other teams. Like, if you throw the 501st to any of these other teams, none of them are really gonna be able to beat easily. Maybe Rebel Fighters with a good Datacron will give them a run, and then Tuskens in 3v3. But overall, 501st is a super solid faction. And the fact that it's from the pre-Omicron era helps boost it up a bit. They're not limited to one game mode. You can beat a GL. You can beat Rey with this. I don't know if they really can beat any other GL. But in the right circumstances, they can beat Rey. So very solid. 501st warming up the B tier for us. And they are followed by kind of a close relative in my mind of power. I mean, obviously, because they're grouped together. Sith Empire. So Sith Empire is also functionally kind of one team. They do have some flexibility there. In 3v3, you can make two teams out of them that are pretty good. For 501st, you would need some outside help to make two teams. Sith Empire Trooper, good viability, plug and play. You can put with Bane, Sith Eternal, he's great value as a pre-taunt. But Malgus, Malak, Darth Revan, and Bastila, they are going to be the recipe to beat a lot of good teams. Like, even teams from factions ranking higher than them in Grand Arena. And they're not really that limited on Datacrons. If you don't have a specific Datacron for them, for their faction, they still make use of a lot of different stats and a lot of different level 3 abilities. And then outside of Grand Arena, I mean, still really solid in TW. In TB, you can even use Darth Revan lead, on Dathomir. That's something I really like to do. But they're just super solid. So lower B tier for Sith Empire. And now we got a faction that was not around last time I did this ranking, the Gungans. So Gungans are a new team this year. Currently the focus of the raid, or like one of the focuses in that raid. PvP wise, they're just really strong. I mean, they're a very talented faction. I put them just above Sith Empire because there's more things that they're really going to beat. I mean, they might be the answer to Balin's Skull. I don't know. But they're just hard to deal with in general on defense as well. On TB, they're really solid. I can throw them on most planets, and they're going to get it done pretty easily. But yeah, Gungan's really solid faction. Next up, we have Mandalorians. So you might think of bounty hunters when you see this icon, but this is the Mandalorian faction. And they are strong, and they really got vaulted higher because of Bo-Katan and Mandalore. So Bo-Katan, between Bo-Katan and the Maul team, they have two functional, legit teams, light side Mandos, dark side Mandos. With Imperial Super Commando, Maul is a bona fide threat to Galactic Legends. Without ISC and Bo-Katan and Mandalore, they would really plummet a lot. But they've got a lot of support in the past 2 years. Bo-Katan is sensational. I mean, she makes Lord Vader look like a weakling, and some people would argue a lot of characters do that, but they're definitely solid in the middle of that B tier there. And now we finally have our first faction that includes a Galactic Legend, although it doesn't really bring to mind a Galactic Legend naturally. So we got Smugglers, and this is the icon I use for Datacrons. I don't know why, but yeah, we have Jabba in this faction. However, it's ranked a little lower than some of his other factions because this has nothing to do with him really. I mean, you have Skiff Guard Lando that's going to go on his team normally, and that's about it, I think. I mean, Bouchelet is like, so many bounty hunters are not smugglers. He's the only dark side smuggler, which is weird. But you do have Hondo in here, Zori Bliss, Dash. So some really solid characters. Han Solo, Chewbacca. So really solid teams that put them higher than all the other teams we've seen so far. Including, I mean, you know, these are some solid factions: Mandalorians, Gungans, Sith Empire. So not too shabby. Smugglers in the middle of B tier. Now this next faction, I wasn't really sure where to place them, but we got Mercenaries. Brand new faction to the game. They just slotted in a bunch of existing characters to it. And we have one functional, real good mercenary team. That's Balin's Skull right now, and there's limited info on them yet. We haven't even seen them in 5v5, but I'm doing my best to rank them now, anticipating Balin to be pretty good. Then we also have some one-offs where their whole team is not in this faction, but they are really strong. Jedi Knight Cal, Dr. Aphra, Mando, your Django, Chrysanthemum, Dash, Hondo, a lot of good stuff. Even Boba Fett Sign of Django has its uses in TW. Alien take down Lord Vader, which is pretty solid all around. A lot of random characters. Characters that hold their own, that pull their own weight. So I thought higher B tier was fair for them. Now we only got two more factions in the B tier, and the second to last one is the Hutt Cartel. Now Hutt Cartel is small. It is functionally limited to one team, but it is Jabba on that team. So, and this is his whole, if you run a team with him, this is what you use. You're not going to be filtering by bounty hunters or scoundrels or smugglers. You're going to filter by Hutt Cartel, and I'll take this faction over any of the others we've seen so far if you're just doing one team. However, the fact that it is just one team kind of limits it in terms of Galactic Legends, and there are some other factions that Jabba holds that will be higher. But Hutt Cartel, super solid, high B tier. Okay, last B tier faction, Inquisitors. I don't think there's too much argument I need to make to put them up this high. They are just a one-team faction. Marok in there, I guess, kind of increases their standing a little bit by giving them a little extra punch. They do have good ships. I mean, they kick butt. I think everyone knows how good Reva is at this point. She's just one of the few non-GL teams that consistently can challenge multiple GLs. So, super high-powered B tier, but like I said, that's the highest a single team faction is really going to get. Moving on to the A tier, the factions are less populated in these higher tiers. We have Imperial Remnants. So last time I did the ranking, Imperial Remnant was kind of a laughing stock. They didn't even have a full team. Now they have two really good teams. So we have the standard Dark Trooper Moff Gideon team, and then we have a Captain Enoch team. Now how you split them up, one team is kind of going to suffer because Dark Trooper is not like you know, great add-on in either case. But I think they are both crazy guys. I mean, Darkshire Moff Gideon in TW is a different breed. Even in GAC, any turn meter train team, they're going to crush them easily. They have a chance to beat Jabba pretty consistently, even without super special Datacron help, really. I mean, it's tough. It's tough without any kind of Datacron help, but they're really good. I mean, Enoch, Night Trooper, and Death Trooper, really hard to deal with if you don't have the right thing. So they are two super strong teams. Putting them in the A tier, which is kind of weird. It's hard to balance. You know, they're above the Hot Cartel because Hot Cartel just has one team, but it is a Galactic Legend. So I don't know. That's just how it looked right to me. And this next faction is getting significant help from newer characters. We have Night Sisters. So Night Sisters ranked kind of low last time I did a faction ranking, but it's all about Great Mothers. I mean, Marin is fantastic as well. She's new since the last time I did the ranking, but it is all about Great Mothers. Great Mothers are just a world apart. So we have two strong teams, and then one of them is pretty transcendent. We have yet to see them for a lengthy period of time without their whale cron, which is kind of crazy. But just using them in Conquest and Territory Battle, they kick butt. So you can make two teams out of this, but so that's why they kind of qualify, but it's really just that one transcendent team that qualifies them for this for the A tier. Next we have Scoundrels. So Scoundrels is kind of up here just from pure breadth of the faction. It is very diverse. There's a lot of strong stuff. I mean, it's hard, you know, it's weird. You can argue that it's lower than some of these other factions that are less populated. But in the end, look at what we got. Okay, we got Commander Ahsoka, we got Afra, we got almost all the bounty hunters. We got Zori Bliss, we got Dash, we got Hondo, Seer. BT-1 is also a scoundrel. We got Han and Chewie, Nest, you know, Skip Lando. It is just so broad. I think right now it's the largest faction in the game, and it has been for a good while. Unless something else, I don't think anything else has passed it, but just from pure breadth, I put Scoundrel Faction in the middle of the A tier. Maybe I shouldn't have because they don't have a Galactic Legend and they don't have a truly transcendent team, but you know, I mean, Cat kind of fulfills that role. But still middle of A tier. Let me know what you think. Next one we got First Order. And you know, there could be kind of be an argument of, okay, so obviously they're clearly focused on Supreme Leader Kylo Ren. That is, he's basically the whole faction. He's not the whole faction, but you do arguably have two teams. So in TW, you can have a Phasma lead team. In Grand Arena, you could have a team that integrates First Order TIE Pilot. So they do qualify for multiple team status. And Supreme Leader Kylo Ren is just, he's obviously a GL, and he's one of the better GLs we have. So the only GL faction that's below right now is like Hot Cartel and Smugglers with Jabba. Smugglers, again, it's weird. Like I've already talked about it, but it's a hard balancing act for me. But I think that's the best I can do for First Order, and I think it's almost kind of the worst I can do. So I do think I have them in a good spot. And now this is where Jabba gets his revenge. I have bounty hunters towards the top of A tier, and they would be nowhere near that if not for Jabba. So this is really, you know, it's not Hot Cartel, which is like what you want to focus on for his team, but he does have most of his team in this faction and is a broader, more diverse and relevant faction. So Jabba within bounty hunters has Boushh, Chrysanthemum, Embo, Boba Fett. He's really only missing Skip Lando, if you want to consider that. But then you also got a Bosk lead team that incorporates Mandalorian usually, or Fennec Shan lead to take on a giant Lord Vader. Zam kind of lifts this faction too. Boba Fett, Son of Jango, also has some better uses in TW. And Jango, he gets a little bit of extra value as a separatist and a mercenary. He has a lot of tags. Actually, look at this. He plus 2 more. Oh my gosh. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 like true factions. That's crazy. He's a man of many talents. But yeah, that's bounty hunters. Now top A tier. So the last non-S tier is Resistance. Kind of an interesting logo they have. I don't know if that stands out to anyone, so I labeled it. But Resistance, with the addition of Zori Bliss, has 2 bona fide, just legit strong teams. So Rey carries, obviously. So Rey is top 4 Galactic Legend, in my opinion. She can get most of it done with just resistance, but you know, she likes unaligned force users as well. But the Zori team is really what elevates them. So I mean, Bounty Hunters has just 1 Galactic Legend and then some other valuable teams. I'd say the Zori team is more powerful than either of the second Bounty Hunter teams or First Order teams. So that's why Resistance tops A tier, but they cannot crack S tier because they just don't have enough. I mean, they have a GL, but yeah, and a couple teams, you know, the S tier teams are something different. They are large and they are strong. And the first one we're going to be looking at is Rebels. So Rebels are our first S tier and bottom of the S tier faction. They have 1 GL, that's Leia. Leia's fantastic. She is probably the best Galactic Legend we have right now until Ahsoka. I don't know if she'll be better or not, but... And this also incorporates a lot of the smaller factions where I looked at, like Rogue One, Rebel Fighter, Phoenix. So it's got all that in there, plus CLS, you know, Drogon, Rex. It's just a very broad, strong faction. Ahsoka Fulcrum is a Rebel too. But Luthen, but it is mainly Leia that's vaulting them up here, and then they just have multiple other super strong teams. I mean, CLS is a classic and a staple in PvE modes, and also, you know, he's got great mechanics with Han and Chewie and Grand Arena too. But they're not what keeps them at the bottom of the S tier. They don't have, I don't know, multiple like completely dominant teams. So there is a lot of filler. There's a lot of fluff, like Luke Farm Boy, Lando, Wedge. Not really anything substantial there. So that's why I couldn't justify that putting them any higher in the S tier. Next up, we have Galactic Republic. You might have expected Empire, because Rebels and Empire are pretty closely related, but no, Galactic Republic. This was the rank 2 faction last time I ranked this in late 2022. But since then, there's been a lot of stuff added, but you know, not too much. The biggest thing that's been added since then is Queen Amidala and her boys, her protectors, and then the Keller and Beck team. But we got multiple really strong teams here. We got JFK Cat team, we got Gas team, we got a Qui-Gon Jinn team in Grand Arena, we got Keller and Beck in TW, we got Queen Amidala. So a lot of really strong teams, really diverse. You could argue that they get a little bit harder too. It's just, you know, it's kind of a close call for me, but Galactic Republic, super strong faction. At one point, they were definitely the strongest faction in the game. I think shortly after like JMK and Cat came out, they were probably the best faction. But right now, there's a few that have a good argument over them. The next one, Empire. You know, Empire. This is the closest one to them in terms of parity and power levels. And it is, you know, I would say it is arguable. Let me just try to make it so you can see everybody. It is arguable between Galactic Republic and Empire. You might think Galactic Republic is better. I don't know. But we do have Lord Vader, Transcendent team. The biggest thing for me to push them up was Inquisitors with Reva and Dark Trooper Moff Gideon. Mainly Inquisitors. We also have lots of other strong teams fleshing them out with like Imperial Troopers, like Veer's Troopers, Iden Versio team. We got a Palplead team. So Palpatine, it's kind of weird. It's kind of like the Starkiller team, but he's an Ufu, so he doesn't count. Let's just say it's close. It's close between Empire and Galactic Republic. I think they're both extremely strong, and there's a lot of parity between these two. It was kind of like a coin toss for me. So these two very much linked. Let me know what you think, which one should actually be higher. Now we're coming to the tippity top. This is the cream of the crop, and I swear I'm not trying to rhyme. But what is Star Wars all about, really, for most people? It's about the Force. So we have 3 Force-wielding factions to talk about, starting with Sith. So I think Sith are number 3. Last time I did the ranking, they were just, I think, a little bit lower. Maybe they're 2. I don't know. But the biggest boost they've gotten recently is Darth Bane. And Darth Bane changes the equation. It is like having 3 galactic legends. Lord Vader, he doesn't use Sith really for his team, but he is good. and he is a galactic legend, and he is Sith, so he counts for this. Sith Eternal, Darth Bane, it's like 3 Galactic Legends. In Grand Arena, the Traya team, this is a lean, mean faction. Sith, there is hardly any waste to it. Probably the worst character, Sith Assassin or Dooku, you know, outside of Grand Arena Savage. But in Grand Arena Savage is pretty nasty. This also encapsulates all the relevant members of the Sith Empire faction. And we don't have HK-47 in here, but they have an amazing fleet. They have like 4 or 5 top tier teams in Grand Arena, which doesn't seem like it because there's 23 characters here, so it doesn't seem like they have 5 teams. But Bane doesn't need anybody. He's just himself. He brings in some random other character and he just kicks butt and kills Galactic Legends. So Sith, fantastic faction, but they're still number 3. And who could beat the Sith but the Jedi? So this is Jedi number 2. So obviously we know what number 1 is now. After that, let me make myself smaller so you can see the whole faction. But Jedi, I mean, it is most of Jedi. The Jedi faction is Galactic Republic, but there are Galactic Republic characters that are not in the Jedi faction, and likewise there are Jedi characters that are not Galactic Republic. What you add to Galactic Republic, what Jedi has that GR doesn't, you know, you got Jedi Master Luke, we have Ezra, Exile just added, Revan, Cal, Jedi Knight, Luke Skywalker, Hermit Yoda. So lots of really strong stuff. 2 Galactic Legend factions, so it's kind of like the requirement at this high of the level in the S tier, and multiple other teams. I mean, Gas's whole team is not here, but he is just kind of a representative, super strong, and you know, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, amazing. Cal has implications all on his own. So you can make 4 or 5 super strong teams from this, and having the 2 Galactic Legends does lift them. Could they be under Sith? Like, I think that's potentially arguable. I think these top 3 are all kind of close together in terms of potential. It's just, this is kind of what it shook out to for me. And then if you know all the factions, obviously the last one, this is unaligned Force users. So the devs have been going crazy. This didn't use, like when they added this faction, it was kind of like a fringe thought. But since they added this faction, they have been going crazy with it. And it's kind of odd because, you know, there's only one true unaligned Force user leader that can have anybody. That's Seer. She is a good leader. And then there's another de facto one, which is Rey. Rey leads light side unaligned Force users very well. But look at all the just one-off sensational characters we have here. We got 2 GLs, and Rey and Kyle. They're not focused around. Ufu's is not the focus of their kit. But we have Inquisitors. Fantastic team. That was part of what got Empire so high. We have Baylan Skull, the new hotness. Terran Malicos, like one of my favorite characters in this game. Cat, Starkiller, Maul. Just, this is like an all-star team. I mean, that's a good comparison. It's an all-star team from a bunch of characters, the top players from all different teams, meshed into one faction. To rule them all, and that is the title of this, to rule them all. So I think unaligned Force users are the best faction in the game. You could probably make 6 or 7 amazing teams from this, at least if you're counting like their main representatives for the team. I mean, so you got Rey, Springler Kylo is their own team, Baylan, Malicos is his own team, Reva, Maul has his own team, CLS does, yeah. Okay, so yeah, I think it's like 7 really good top tier teams. So that's why I have them up there. I'm interested to hear arguments either way. I think these top 3, the top 3 is kind of an unassailable thing. Empire and Galactic Republic definitely in their own category, are very close together, and Rebels is kind of lagging just a little bit behind. So this was fun to do. Again, I'm really interested to hear thoughts. But thanks so much for listening to me go through this video. It's been probably too long since I last did it, and I thought it was worth an update. But yeah, see you guys later.